Planet Vero Studios, brought to you by Evergreen Media, creating cohesive marketing campaigns. Evergreen Media in Vero Beach.
She is a beauty influencer from New York City who commands attention.
He is a lawyer born and raised in Florida who lays down the law.
And together they are The Lady and the Law. Here are your hosts of The Lady and the Law, Cindy Grossman and Mitchell Goldman.
Well, hello, I'm Mitchell Goldman, so this must be Cindy Grossman. And we're not exactly in the studio physically today because of bad weather. So we're doing the show from our house. So welcome to our house. And you look so nice.
Thank you.
Jesse, I saw you earlier and you look very nice as well.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
That's okay. I fooled you. You didn't expect that, but that's okay. Today we have our special guest, Melissa Valdez. Melissa is a new attorney with our firm. She's not new to the practice of law. She's a new attorney with our firm, and we welcome her. You've seen our other attorneys. Now you get to see Melissa. And let me tell you something about Melissa, a few things. Melissa is from Central Florida. She went to University of Central Florida. She's a Golden Knight. She went to law school at Barry University in Orlando as well. Some interesting facts. When she was in law school, she met and took a class, you'll like this, from Chief Justice John Roberts. And she said he knew all the names of all the students. So he really took an interest. And the other thing I think is interesting, I don't know why, but before she became a lawyer, she was an optician. How does Cindy's glasses look?
They look beautiful. I love them. Perfectly straight and aligned.
So I think that's very interesting. I don't know why, but interesting fact. So Melissa, why? So let's just. So the average consumer, they're going to buy a house, let's say, and they have a realtor. Why do they need a real estate attorney? They have a realtor. Isn't that enough?
Yeah, and a lot of people do believe that it's enough. But when there's a sticky situation or their interests really need to be protected, that's when real estate attorneys definitely can be helpful in those situations where it's just maybe a little bit above what a realtor deals with on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, they're not practicing law. And so that's where we can come in and really help out in those type of situations.
What kind of situations have you experienced where a real estate lawyer really helped and saved the day for the client?
Oh, there's been so many. But for instance, if you're selling a lot that you may have a tenant and the tenant doesn't want to leave, you know, you have to do some paperwork and file some things to make sure we can get that tenant evicted prior to closing. Or there's just been different situations too where, you know, things get kind of sticky with, like, maybe you need to do a post-occupancy agreement where the seller wants to stay in the home for some period afterwards. And there's some property exchange, tangible property exchange. Those different type of scenarios can come up during a transaction or, you know, that aren't necessarily thought about earlier on.
What about some title matters that come up? What are some scenarios that you've had to work through and help your client with that, you know, require the services of an attorney?
Right. So the one that sticks out for me is when there's oil and mineral reservations. A lot of times, you know, during the review of a title, we see those. And especially if, like, let's say our client is going to build or develop a piece of land for future use, you want to make sure that, either the person that owns the reservation can't come and enter and excavate. So those type of things, that's like one of the main situations that I've seen that a lot of people don't think about when purchasing property or land to build in the future.
Now, what about the real estate contract? Isn't that just a form that, it doesn't really need attorney to review?
A lot of times that's what people think, but there's situations, for example, when there's permits and liens on a piece of property, and let's say that's not something that was put into the contract. So then the seller doesn't necessarily have to close those out if that's not highlighted in the contract. So situations that can come up with permits or liens is just one specific issue that can be oversought in the contract and not addressed throughout the transaction or at closing for the buyer.
And so it's a good idea then to have someone look at the contract really before you sign, just to make sure that everything is covered and addressed.
Definitely. I definitely see a huge benefit. We are going to protect our clients' interests, and we can spot issues that maybe a realtor won't spot in the contract and early on in a transaction. So we can address those as we go along instead of it becoming a huge problem at the end or after closing. A lot of people this is their dream, whether it's, residential or commercial, it's their business or for their personal dreams to achieve. And they're putting a lot of money into this transaction, most likely. And to not have their interests protected, it's a risk. So we can help protect those interests if we're involved in the process.
Now, there's usually always what's called a due diligence period between the time that the contract is signed and the closing date. What happens during that period, and what does an attorney do to help the buyer, in this case, let's say the buyer, during that important time?
So this is right, like you said, it is an important time, because if something arises with the property during this time that needs to be addressed, whether it's by getting a credit from the seller or being cured during this time, would happen at that time. And if it's not done, then this is a time where a buyer could get out of the contract or terminate the contract without any real monetary effect to their deposit or anything like that. So, or we can have, an extension to that time period so we can cure those defects per se to the property. So that is a really vital time for a buyer in particular to make sure that the property is proper for their use and what they want the property for, and to make sure that they're getting it in the best condition or in the condition that they're seeking the property to be in. So
you would recommend that the buyer, for example, gets a survey, gets inspections done, reviews the title commitment. What kind of inspections need to be done? Let's say for a typical home, what kind of inspections? Do they need a survey?
So a single family home you should get a survey. You kind of want to see if there's any encroachments onto your property, any easement issues. You want access to the property. The same thing with commercial properties. You would want your 4-point inspections. A lot of insurance companies won't insure unless you have all the proper inspections done and then you want to do that during that time period to make sure that you're able to get insurance on the property that you're purchasing.
Okay. And also if they're getting financing, make sure that they're working with the bank or whoever the lender is to make sure that the financing's, continuing as it should.
And you want to make sure too that there's usually with, most contracts, a FAR bar contract, you have a contingency period, and you want to make sure you have all your conditions met for your lender. And you don't want to be at the last minute having to still get your loan approved. And because you can be in a position where if you don't have your loan approved and you're outside of that contingency period, you may have an issue there with your deposit if you're not approved and are not able to get financing.
Okay. Melissa, we're going to come back in a couple minutes and we'll talk about some other things that maybe people don't realize why they need a real estate attorney. So we'll be back. We'll be right back.
Great.
Thank you.
The law offices of Goldman, Monahan, Tucker, and Bettine is here to help you with your personal legal challenges, business needs, and real estate matters. Since 1984, we have assisted countless numbers of Florida individuals and businesses with their legal issues, from trusts and estates, wills, real estate, and civil or criminal litigation. We pride ourselves on maintaining lifelong client relationships and would appreciate the opportunity to assist you and your family as well. Please call 321-639-1320 for further information on the law offices of Goldman, Monahan, Tucker, and Bettine. A non-attorney spokesman.
Need an enlightening pick-me-up? Visit Kristen and Cindy at Skinnergy to energize your skin and keep it looking fabulous forever. Kristen can help with hair removal, sugaring to keep your whole body smooth and conditioned. Kristen will help you refresh and defend your skin while giving you a customized facial. Cindy helps Skinnergize and get you camera ready for your everyday look or special occasion. Visit Kristen and Cindy at Skinnergy. Find them on Facebook under the Skinnergy Squad.
Advertising is essential. You've got to make people aware that you're there. We can do that with a cohesive marketing campaign from Evergreen Media. Based on your business goals, we'll create a mix of digital advertising on social media sites like Facebook, video advertising on streaming sites like Hulu and Paramount Plus, and supplement them with local TV and radio ads. Build awareness, educate, and inform the public with a cohesive marketing campaign by Evergreen Media. Check out egreenmedia.com or search online for Evergreen Media in Vero Beach.
Why do pirates have trouble singing the alphabet? They get lost at sea. You're listening to Planet Vero Radio, local talk radio from 2 to midnight, weekends on Real Radio 1017.
This is Lori Davis, host of Your Realtor for Life with Lori Davis, and you're listening to Planet Vero Radio, real local talk radio from 2 to midnight, weekends on Real Radio 1017.
And we're back. Jesse, welcome back. Cindy, welcome back. Beautiful glasses.
Thank you.
And what about mine? They're okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Our guest is Melissa Valdez. Melissa is a real estate attorney with the firm Goldman, Monahan, Tucker, and Bettine, PA. So, and we were talking about, do you need a real estate attorney and why you need a real estate attorney? So when we were talking about the closing process, so some reasons why. So Melissa, let's talk about some other reasons unrelated to closing, why people may need a real estate attorney. So maybe give us some examples, some thoughts of yours.
Sure, definitely. I think if you're a small business owner, you definitely would benefit from having a real estate attorney in your back pocket. If you're presented with a lease, if you're going into a commercial lease, or you're the landlord and you're, leasing out your space to a tenant, it's definitely something to think about, because we could definitely protect your interest as far as, making sure your terms that are in the lease are benefiting you and your interests, whether, like I said, if you're a tenant or a landlord, if you're, your rates that you're charging, or whether you're including renewal periods, just different terms that you may not think about if you're not necessarily in the business of real estate. And it's sometimes a realtor will help you find the space, the terms and all of that is a little bit out of their wheelhouse. So that's where we could come and definitely help you negotiate the right terms for your business.
And I know we review a lot of leases and we draft leases, and people have to really understand what they're signing. For example, if you're in a strip center or a shopping center, a lot of times there's what's called a CAM charge, CAM, common area maintenance charge. Why don't you talk about that, Melissa? Maybe people, I don't know if they actually read it and understand it. It's a good idea to talk about it with an attorney so you understand it from the tenant's perspective.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people, when they go into a lease, they think of it as, their residential leases. They think, like, I'm going to pay my utility and that's it. When it comes to CAM, and that could, open a whole other expense that a lot of people going into, a business lease don't know about and don't maybe project that they'll have to pay over the course of the year. So that will be, for example, taxes, that the whole property, you would pay your proportion share of that, or it could be your trash or any even services that the landlord provides to that strip center. So there'll be a whole section in your lease that will break that down, what's covered in your CAM charge and what's not covered in your CAM charge. And it could, be from hundreds to thousands of dollars extra that you did not contemplate in your base rent.
It can get very expensive. It can. What are some other, so you review leases, what are some other services that a real estate attorney, customarily offers to a prospective client?
Right. I mean, there's the other aspect too. If you get into a situation where, there's evictions and landlord tenant issues. I know our firm provides and helps with that situation too. And just understanding different documents that you may be getting, depending if you're like a landlord tenant or, your different policies that you may receive at a closing, and contracts that relate to a transaction of that same kind.
So an eviction, tell us about what happens with an eviction. Somebody doesn't pay. Can the landlord just lock the doors and that's the end of that?
No, fortunately, there is a process. With the landlord tenant issue, they have to provide notice. And then, there's a time period that you can cure or, come to the right terms that needed to be met to maintain yourself in that property. So there is some statutory law that would help, you through that process if you were found to be in that situation.
And what happens if there's a mortgage? And do you draft mortgages? And what happens if somebody doesn't pay a mortgage? What does the lender do, the person that's owed the money do in that case?
You can foreclose on the property. So, and that can be very difficult, not only for the borrower, but for, who's in that property. So it's also a process. There's a statutory process involved with that. So, but yes, the foreclosure process is what would definitely happen. And if you need assistance through that process, that's something a real estate attorney could assist with as well.
Yeah, so the real estate attorney helps with the litigation in that case.
Correct. Yes.
When you, as a real estate attorney, when there's a sale and there's a title passes to a buyer, what's your involvement with that process?
Well, at that time, at closing, you would have a deed and the deed gets recorded. Sometimes there could be issues on the deed and we can help clear those issues if needed as well. There's been many a situation that we've seen where the deed wasn't drafted properly, or the right parties weren't included. And a lot of times, a title company will have to have an attorney come in and assist with correcting those sort of issues.
And that's where we come in.
That's right.
Trying to make sure that the problems get resolved or don't get any worse, and people can close and go away happy. So, all right, here's one last question.
Sure.
Why do you like real estate law? What about real estate law appeals to you more than litigation or criminal law or family law or any other kind of law?
Well, those two specific ones you mentioned are very heavy. I think with real estate law, I want to say 99% of the time people leave happy. They're either selling and making money, or they're purchasing their dream home or their forever home, or even if it's their business, they're purchasing their commercial property to grow their business. So I feel like it's always kind of a happy ending. So that's what attracts me to and why I love real estate.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Great answer.
Okay, here's the hardest question of all. Give the audience our phone number and email and your extension.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. I don't even have our phone number memorized. Can you help me with that?
You don't know it. I was going to text you. Here it is. It's okay.
321-353-7625. My extension's 105.
There you go. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. Hope you had fun. And Jesse, thank you again for producing our show. And Cindy, as always, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.